Welcome to Book 2 of the Heart of Clans trilogy, Between Worlds. A multi-shifter fantasy. She vowed to be human to survive. He built a sanctuary to protect her. It wasn't enough. Rayna was once the clan's most gifted mediator, a bridgewalker who could only show her true forms in Dreamscape. When Alpha Wraith Wolf Shifter claimed his fated mate, he unwittingly exposed what the Conclave had erased from history. She carries the blood of all beasts, an evolution the world forgot. Panthers reported her to the Conclave, an authority no one in their generation knew existed. To protect her lineage from erasure, Rayna bound herself to human flesh. To shield her from extinction, Rafe used his fierce loyalty and Rayna's professional allies to forge the heart of clans. Unprecedented multi-citizenship binding wolves, bears, panthers, ravens, and mountain lions into one defiant alliance. But secrets have teeth, and the Conclave does not forgive. Between Worlds begins where the treaties end. Rayna must break her vow and unleash the multi-shifter she buried, or watch the Conclave sever the bridge between all shifters forever. The warfare coming isn't fought with claws or steel. It's fought without waking. Book 2 of the Multi-Shifter Fantasy Series. Subscribe and begin the dream. Heart of Clans. Trilogy, Book 2. Between Worlds. Chapter 1. The Ridge. The ridge smelled of pine resin, damp moss, and the clean bite of high-altitude air that always cleared my head. I crouched on a granite outcrop overlooking a narrow alpine valley, 3,000 feet above the nearest road. No trails, no scent of humans or rival clans. Just rock, wind, and the kind of silence that made my wolf settle its hackles for once. Perfect. Or it would have been perfect if I weren't mentally calculating how many panther nobles could fit on that tiny meadow without trampling the wild lupine into paste. Fandor's latest suggestion had arrived via Raven Courier, because of course it did. A gilded scroll listing 17 potential Unity ceremony venues across Panther territory, each more extravagant than the last. Crystal grottos lit by bioluminescent fungi. Waterfalls engineered to refract moonlight into rainbows. An amphitheater carved into a mountainside where echoes would amplify vows for miles. Sen had added handwritten notes in the margin. The grotto has natural acoustics for choral blessings. The amphitheater seats 1,200 comfortably. The waterfall venue includes synchronized fire dancers. I'd stared at the parchment until it blurred, then handed it to Rayna without a word. She'd read it, laughed once, short, disbelieving, then folded the scroll very carefully, set it on the table, and walked out onto the porch without speaking. That was 2 hours ago. She hadn't cried, hadn't yelled, just gone quiet in that way she did when the world got too loud and too big and she needed to remember how to breathe inside her own skin. I hated it. So here I was, scouting. Not for Panther grandeur, for us. A place small enough that she could hear her own heartbeat during the vows. A place where the only echoes would be ours. Rayna had enough chaos to process moving into our pack house. To say the least, it was not the quietest place in the world. The neutral territory gifted to the heart of clans. My whole pack had relocated there in the previous weeks, and the compound thrummed with constant activity. Pups underfoot, elders arguing, construction crews finishing the new meeting hall. The valley below was crescent-shaped, cradled by 7 small peaks. A thin stream cut through wild grass dotted with late summer fireweed. At the far end, an ancient white pine stood alone. Trunk wide enough that 3 wolves could link arms around it, branches spreading like arms raised in welcome. I shifted. Wolf nose to the ground, I circled the tree. No recent predator scent, no wards, no lingering magic, just clean earth and the faint sweetness of sap. Perfect. I shifted back, pulled my phone from the pack. Signal barely existed up here, but my beta, Nikita, had insisted on the satellite model, and snapped 3 photos. Then I walked toward the cedar stand at the stream's edge, where the water widened into a pool. The birds fell silent as I approached. Not the gradual hush of a predator passing, but a sudden, absolute stop, as if the air itself had sucked the sound away. The stream burbled backward for a heartbeat, water rushing upstream against gravity, then corrected itself. I blinked. Wolf's senses prickled. The hair on my arms stood up, though there was no static in the air. I waited, breathing shallow, searching for threat. Nothing. Just whined through the cedars and the faint, sweet salt smell of ozone. I shook it off. Adrenaline and wedding stress playing tricks. I'd scout the rest tomorrow. I turned downhill, pulling up the text thread. Nikita, Sen just added a ceremonial drum circle. 40 drummers. Thoughts? I typed back one word. No. 3 dots. Then, she says it symbolizes the heartbeat of unity. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Tell her Rayna's heartbeat is already perfect. No drums required. Pause. Then, she laughed. No drummers. Good save Alpha. I exhaled. The valley was the one. Small, private, ours. I'd fight every panther matriarch, every drum circle, every gilded scroll to keep it that way. Because my mate had already carried the weight of worlds on her shoulders. She didn't need to carry a wedding too. Not alone. Never alone. I turned toward the ridge trail, wind at my back, heading home to the woman who was everything and the only thing I'd ever fight the entire world to protect. Chapter 2. The weight of being seen. I scented her distress before I saw her. Pine resin and wildflowers. That was Rayna's natural bouquet, the one that had first drawn my wolf to her in the dark months ago. But beneath it now, threading through the clean notes of her scent like smoke through clear air, was the sharp, metallic tang of panic. Not the kind that comes from physical danger, the kind that settles in when a soul is being slowly crushed under the weight of too many expectations. I moved through the compound's back paths, keeping to the shadows of the ancient cedars that ringed the main buildings. My boots made no sound on the soft earth. Above me, the afternoon sun cut through the canopy in gold bars. But down here, in the green dark spaces between the buildings, the air was cool and still. The sewing room stood apart from the main house, a glass-walled studio that Sen had commandeered for the fittings, claiming the natural light was essential for the beadwork. I approached from the north, where the rhododendrons grew thick and high, giving me cover. I didn't want to interrupt, didn't want to add to the pressure I could already feel radiating off her like heat from stone. Through the glass, I saw them. Sen stood behind Rayna, her golden hands adjusting the fall of ivory silk across my mate's shoulders. The dress was beautiful. I'd give the panther that. It looked like moonlight had been poured over Rayna's frame, clinging to the lines of her body with a reverence that made my chest tight. Raven wings embroidered in silver thread twisted up the bodice, meeting wolf tracks and obsidian beadwork at the collarbone. It should have made her look powerful, regal. Instead, she looked like she was drowning. I could see it in the set of her shoulders, the too stiff line of her spine, the way her fingers kept finding the points of the sleeves, those feather-like extensions Sen had designed, and tugging at them as if they were bindings, not decorations. Her reflection in the tall mirror showed a face I knew too well, the mask she wore when she was trying not to disappoint anyone. Sen was talking. I could see her mouth moving, bright and enthusiastic, gesturing with the quick, precise movements of someone who saw beauty as a weapon to be wielded. Rayna nodded, smiled. The expression didn't reach her eyes. I knew that smile. It was the one she'd used for 3 years in the Conclave's custody, before she'd learned to trust that some people actually wanted her truth instead of her performance. My wolf stirred, restless, wanting to break through the glass and carry her away from the mirrors and the measurements and the suffocating kindness. Not yet, I told him. Give her a moment. But I stayed, watching. Guarding from the shadows like a wolf watches a fawn who doesn't yet know the hunter is near. Sen stepped back, admiring her work, saying something that made Rayna's lips twitch upward. Not a laugh, not even close, a reflex, polite, fragile. Then Sen left, bustling out the side door, probably to fetch more pins or another length of fabric, her mind already 3 appointments ahead. The moment she was gone, Rayna's composure cracked. I saw it happen in real time. The smile vanishing, her shoulders curling inward, her head dropping into her hands. She stood there in the middle of the room, surrounded by ivory silk and the ghosts of everyone's good intentions, and simply stopped. Stopped breathing. Stopped pretending. Just stopped. My heart twisted. She didn't cry. Rayna rarely cried in front of mirrors. She'd told me once that mirrors were witnesses she couldn't escape, reflections that demanded she perform even her private grief with grace. Instead, she went still. That terrible, heavy stillness that meant she was trying to remember how to be small enough to fit inside her own skin again. I started forward, but she was already moving. She slipped out the side door, not the one Sen had used, but the one leading to the back garden. Quick, silent, an escape route planned probably from the moment she'd walked in. I gave her 3 seconds. Then I followed. The garden was laid out in the old style. Circular beds of late roses surrounding a stone bench that had sat on this land since before the treaties were signed. The air here hung heavy with perfume, almost cloying in its sweetness. Rayna sat on the bench, her back to me, her spine curved like a bowstring drawn too tight. Her hands covered her face, fingers pressing into her temples as if she could physically push back the pressure building behind her eyes. I stopped at the edge of the gravel path, close enough to scent the salt of unshed tears, far enough to give her the illusion of solitude. She didn't look up, didn't need to. She knew my footsteps. She knew my scent. She knew the rhythm of my breathing like I knew hers. "You've been out running," she said, her voice muffled behind her palms. It wasn't a question. "Ridge Trail," I said softly. "Found something." "Another venue option? Does this one feature ice sculptures, or maybe a choir of trained songbirds?" She was trying for levity. It fell flat, landing like broken glass between us. I moved closer, standing beside the bench so my thigh pressed against her shoulder. Warm, solid, present. I didn't touch her yet. Didn't crowd. Just let my shadow fall over her. Let my scent, pine and wind and the clean sweat of the run, mix with the roses. She leaned into me almost imperceptibly. A wolf seeking shelter from a storm. "Too many drums?" I asked. A laugh burst out of her, half sob, entirely desperate. 40 drummers, Rafe. Sen says it symbolizes the heartbeat of unity." I snorted, letting my disgust show so she wouldn't have to carry hers alone. Sen's idea of intimate. She means well. She does. I sank onto the bench beside her, wrapping my arm around her shoulders. She fit against me like she'd been carved from the same stone as my bones. "Get up." She blinked up at me, silver green eyes fogged with exhaustion and the residue of too much performance. "What?" "Truck's running." I held up my phone, thumbing to the photos I'd taken hours earlier. The white pine, the crescent valley, the wild grass glowing in the sunset light. No fire dancers, no choruses, just this. Now. She stared at the screen. I watched her face, the way her pupils dilated, the way her breath caught, the way something hidden and hungry stirred behind the exhaustion. Recognition. Hunger. A wolf seeing open sky after years in a cage. "Now," she repeated. Not a question, a demand. "Now," I confirmed. The Dodge sat waiting in the shadow of the compound's outer pines, lifted on 37-inch mud terrains, blacked out, 6.7-liter Cummins rumbling low and mean. I'd bought it 3 weeks earlier after one too many elders suggested I upgrade to something more befitting the heart of the clans. Fuck dignified. This truck was built to climb mountains, chew logging roads, and get us the hell away from scroll-bearing ravens and synchronized fire dancers. Rayna's lips twitched, the first real smile I'd seen in days. "Wicked," she murmured, running her hand along the fender. She bounced twice on the balls of her feet, little hops of nervous energy escaping through her skin. "Yeah, that was enough. Thought you'd like it." I opened the passenger door for her. No Panther-approved sedans today. She climbed in, buckled up, leaned her head against the window as I fired up the engine. The deep growl vibrated through the cab, drowning out the compound's distant sounds. The construction, the planning committees, the ever-present murmur of people who needed things from her. I eased us onto the back logging road. No one followed. No one even knew we were gone yet. The drive was quiet. Good quiet. Rayna didn't speak much, just watched the trees blur past, fingers absently turning stormstone ring on her left hand. Every few miles her shoulders dropped a fraction. The tight line of her jaw softened. She was breathing easier, filling her lungs with the cool forest air that poured through the cracked window. When we parked at the ridgetop trailhead and killed the engine, the sudden hush was almost deafening. Wind through pines, distant water, birds just waking. The valley opened below us like a palm upturned in offering. I turned to her. Ready? She looked out the windshield at the crescent valley cradled by 7 small peaks, wild grass dotted with late fireweed, the single massive white pine, standing sentinel at the far end. Her breath caught just a little. Yeah, she said softly. I'm ready. We walked down the narrow trail side by side. No rush. Sun climbing, warming the air. Her hand found mine halfway down, fingers lacing through mine with a desperation that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with anchoring. When we reached the clearing, she stopped, walked straight to the white pine, laid her palm against the exact rough bark I'd touched hours before, closed her eyes. I stayed back a few paces, guarding her perimeter, letting her breathe it in. My wolf settled, hackles lowering. This was right. This was safe. After a long minute, she turned to me. This is it. Simple, certain. I crossed the grass, pulled her against me, chest to chest, warmth chasing the morning chill. Here? Here. Her smile was small, real, the first unforced one I'd seen in weeks. No drums, no choruses, no 300 pairs of eyes, just us, and this tree that's older than both our bloodlines. I kissed her forehead. We didn't speak after that. We didn't need to. We explored the valley's edge, following the stream's song. The valley narrowed as we walked, pines giving way to towering cedars, trunks twisted, ancient, their bark silver gray in the fading light. The air grew thicker here, charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. My wolf senses prickled. The birds had gone silent again, but differently than before. Not fear, expectation. Then we saw it. Half hidden among the cedars, rising from a flat stone pedestal at the water's edge. A totem, carved from a single massive cedar trunk, weathered but still vibrant. The main figure stood tall, a humanoid form whose features shifted with the angle. Wolf muzzle one moment, panther grace the next, raven beak flashing in the grain. Around its head, like a crown, 12 smaller figures encircled it. Children, unmistakably. Shifter children from every clan. At the base, the carving opened, like a door. Hollowed out, edges smoothed, inviting passage. Rayna reached out, fingers hovering near the crown of children. It's singing, she whispered. Not present, not betrayal, just harmony, before the clans divided. I stepped closer, wolf senses prickling. No active magic, no wards. But the air felt thicker here, charged, heavy with potential. Do you hear that? The river, she said. It's singing. She stepped into the hollow at the base. The stone was warm, impossibly warm beneath my palm when I reached out to steady her. The carving seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting like a lung. Rayna placed her palm against the inner wall. The world went white.
Chapter 3. The Quiet Before. Rayna. I woke to the smell of cedar smoke and Rafe's skin. For a moment I lay still, suspended in that liquid space between dreaming and waking, where the world hasn't yet remembered its weight. His arm was heavy across my waist, his breath warm against the back of my neck, steady and slow. Through the bond, I felt the deep, untroubled rhythm of his sleep. A wolf at rest, all edges softened. Then memory rushed in. The totem. The door. The white light that had swallowed us whole. I flexed my fingers, still feeling the ghost of that impossible warmth from the carved cedar wall. It had lasted only seconds. The blindness, the humming in my bones, the sense of falling upward. But when it released us, we'd stood in the dark with our palms pressed together, burning with a certainty we couldn't name. We hadn't spoken of it on the drive back. Hadn't spoken of it as we'd stumbled into the cabin, exhausted and wordless, collapsing into sleep still dressed in our clothes from the day. But I felt it now. A resonance, like a bell struck in a distant room, still vibrating through my marrow. I turned carefully in his arms. The cabin was small, just one room with rough-hewn walls that smelled of pine resin and old fires. Morning light filtered through the single window, honey gold, turning the dust motes into falling stars. Rafe's face was slack with sleep. Dark lashes fanned against cheekbones, his long silver blonde hair tousled where my fingers had tangled in it last night. I traced the line of his jaw with one fingertip. He stirred, lips curving before his eyes even opened. "Morning, wife-to-be," he murmured, voice gravel rough with sleep. "Morning, husband-to-be." He pulled me closer, kissed me slow and lazy, morning breath and all. I laughed against his mouth, a real laugh, light and surprised, the first one that hadn't felt forced in days. He grinned, kissed the tip of my nose, then rolled us so I was tucked under his chin, his heartbeat thumping steady against my ear. "You feel different," he rumbled, his thumb tracing circles on my shoulder. "Good different?" "Quiet different." His hand stilled. "The totem?" I pressed my palm against his chest, over the place where his heart beat. "It's still there, like a hum, in the background." He didn't ask me to explain. He just covered my hand with his, and for a long moment we breathed together, feeling the strange new frequency that had settled between us. Outside, the compound was beginning to wake. Distant voices, the clatter of construction crews finishing the new meeting hall, the ever-present murmur of a pack that never truly slept. But here, in the small cedar sanctuary away from the main house, we were outside the noise. Sen had negotiated 12 drummers down from 40 after Nikita's threat. But even that felt distant now. Abstract. The valley was waiting. The tree was waiting. That was all that mattered. The morning of our binding ceremony, we dressed slowly, reverently, like priests preparing for ritual. The dress hung on the back of the door. Simple ivory silk that Sen had finally surrendered after I'd begged for no more than 2 layers and nothing that requires a team to get in or out of. It fell soft against my skin as I pulled it over my head, embroidered only with faint raven wings along the hem and wolf tracks climbing the bodice. Subtle, personal, ours. No heavy beadwork, no trailing train. Just me, with my black hair and a messy updo that Rafe helped pin, his fingers clumsy and gentle. I touched the raven feather pendant at my throat, then the stormstone ring on my finger. Cool, grounding, the weight of Rafe's promise. "You look like the valley," he said, leaning against the doorframe watching me, like the part of the morning before the sun fully rises. I smiled at him in the reflection of the small mirror above the wash basin. He wore dark leathers and a charcoal shirt open at the throat, the braided raven quill band on his hand. A single warrior's braid pulled back a section of his silver hair. He looked like a wolf who'd finally stopped pacing. Strong, grounded, mine. "I'm nervous," I admitted. "I know." He crossed the room, took my hand. "But not about us." "No," I said. "Never about us." The Dodge waited outside, dew glistening on its black hood like scattered diamonds. When Rafe fired up the engine, the deep growl vibrated through my sternum, a bass note to the treble of my heartbeat. We drove through the waking forest, the truck chewing up the logging road, tires crunching over gravel and last year's pine needles. I leaned my head against the window, watching the trees blur past. Cedar, spruce, the occasional flash of white pine. The compound fell away. The seamstresses, the drummers, the expectations. With every mile, the pressure in my chest eased, like diving deep and finally feeling the water supporting you instead of crushing down. Rafe kept one hand on the wheel, the other laced with mine on the console. No music. Just the engine's low purr and the wind through the cracked window carrying pine and wildflowers. Through the bond, I felt his focus. Sharp, protective, but calm. Certain. When we parked at the ridgetop trailhead and killed the engine, the silence that rushed in was profound. Holy. The kind of silence that felt like it was listening. Rafe turned to me. Ready? I looked out the windshield at the meadow opening below, Crescent Valley cradled by 7 small peaks, wild grass glowing gold in the morning sun, fireweed burning pink at the edges. And there, at the far end, the ancient white pine standing sentinel, branches spreading in welcome. My breath caught, not with panic this time, but with recognition. Home. This was home. Not the compound, not the pack house, not any building made by hands. This crescent of earth, this tree, this sky. Yeah, I said softly. I'm ready. We walked down the narrow trail hand in hand. The air grew warmer as we descended, scented with wild grass and the clean mineral tang of the stream. My dress whispered against my legs, light as breath. When we cleared the tree line and entered the meadow, I saw them. 50, maybe 60 figures gathered in a loose semicircle beneath the pine's shade. Not 300. Not the crowd Sen had imagined. Just family. Wolves from Rafe's pack. Lars and Finn standing shoulder to shoulder, grinning like idiots. A few elders with silver in their hair nodding solemnly. Pups peeking from behind legs with wide eyes that followed my every step. Panthers from Sen's family. Fandor, Hector, and Link standing with quiet dignity. Matriarchs in flowing silks that caught the breeze. Young warriors with sleek tails twitching and barely suppressed excitement. And bears, sturdy figures with broad shoulders. One elder carrying a carved staff topped with a glowing moonstone, his eyes ancient and kind. They had come to bear witness. Not to inspect, not to judge, but to etch this moment into the fabric of realms beyond this one, so that even in the afterlife when souls wandered the dark places, Rafe and I would find each other again. That was the old purpose, the deep magic of witnessing, to make love irrevocable across all worlds. I felt their eyes on me, felt the weight of their hope, their investment in what Rafe and I represented. The bridge, the heart, the inevitability. But here, under this sky, with Rafe's hand anchoring mine, the weight didn't crush. It connected. Nikita had strung fairy lights through the lowest branches of the white pine. Copper wire and tiny glass bulbs that caught the sun. They weren't lit yet. They'd wait for dusk, for the transition between day and night, between one life and the next. But their presence was a promise. Magic, light, celebration. We walked through the grass, dew soaking the hem of my dress, cool against my ankles. The white pine waited, its bark silver gray and furrowed, its scent sharp and clean. When we reached the space beneath its branches, Rafe turned to face me. No officiant, no script, just us, and the tree, and the witnesses forming a circle of living intention around us. I looked up into Rafe's eyes, storm gray, fierce, tender, and felt the last of my fear dissolve. The totem's hum was louder here, resonating with the ancient wood above us, with the earth beneath my bare feet. The world narrowed to his heartbeat, to the bond flaring bright and golden between us, to the words gathering on my tongue like storm clouds heavy with rain. I was ready. We were ready. Chapter 4. The Heart Says Yes. Rayna. Rafe spoke first, voice low, rough with emotion, eyes fixed on me like I was the only thing keeping him steady. Rayna, for a long time I thought I knew beautiful. Physical things that slip through your fingers when you finally let yourself hold them. Then you walked in, wild, impossible, magical, and I realized I was wrong. You're the most beautiful thing I've ever touched. And the most terrifying, because I know your beauty is endless, will always exist regardless of me bearing witness. Any opportunity I have to be part of your existence is proof I am blessed beyond what I could have ever even known to expect in this world. I vow to choose you every single day. It is the easiest decision I could ever make. To love every hidden part, the wolf that runs with me, the raven that soars above me, the woman who still hides when the world gets too loud, and whatever else you become. I vow to be your safe place when the nights feel too heavy, your loudest voice when you doubt your own light, your quiet when everything's screaming. To fight for you, laugh with you, grow old with you in our afterlife and any other life I would be blessed to be granted. I will forever and always be with you. I'm not asking for forever like it's easy. I'm asking for every second I get with you, because you're the most beautiful thing in my world, and I'd rather burn with you than live without you. My voice was soft at first, steadying as I spoke, tears shining but voice never breaking. Rafe, I spent so long believing beautiful things were only for other people. They fade, they leave, they hurt when they're gone. Then you looked at me. Really looked, and I realized beautiful things aren't safe. They're terrifying. Because if I lose you, I lose the part of me that finally feels alive. I vowed to choose you every single day in this life and our next. To trust you with every truth I carry, even the ones that scare me most. I promise to love you through every storm, every quiet dawn, every impossible moment. To be your bridge when the worlds feel too far apart, your anchor when they crash too close. I'm not asking for forever like it's simple. I'm asking for every heartbeat I get with you, because I'd rather shatter with you than stay whole alone. Silence fell, soft, reverent. Then the witnesses spoke. One by one. Cass first. We witness and bless this bond. May it grow stronger than any storm. He placed a crystal in the ceremonial carved wooden bowl near the base of the pine. Sen, we witness and bless this love. May it be the heartbeat that unites what was broken. She placed a ruby in the bowl, her eyes wet. The bear elder stepped forward next, staff thumping once against the earth. We witness this union. Panther and wolf. Heart and strength. May it be recognized across all realms, seen and unseen. May your souls find each other in the afterlife, fated and unbreakable. He placed a moonstone the size of a robin's egg into the bowl. Quiet settled over us. Warm, golden, complete. Rafe's eyes met mine. Storm gray gone molten silver. He kissed me. Slow, deep, eternal. My lips were still on his when the world stopped breathing. Not a metaphor. The air turned solid in my lungs. The fairy lights froze mid-twinkle, amber bulbs locked in stasis. The wind died. Birds in the branches, ravens, hawks, eagles, went silent mid-call, wings half spread, beaks open in eternal silence. The river's song cut off mid-note, the burble silenced as if choked. Time didn't slow. It stopped. Panic exploded through the bond. Rafe's terror mirrored in my own chest. I tried to pull back, to gasp, but my body locked. Not chains, not sleep, just absence. The universe had hit pause, and we were caught in the frame. The bond, God's the bond, went hollow, echoing. Rafe's presence flickered like a candle in a gale. No. 5 figures materialized at the edge of the circle, not walking, not stepping from shadow. Just there. Robes fraying into nothingness, eyes abyssal voids sucking in the light. Conclave ancients, older than the elders who had examined me, power radiating like cold fire from cracked stone. They didn't speak at first. Didn't need to. Their regard fell on me. Heavy, dissecting, pulling at my essence like hooks in flesh. The oldest, face like weathered bone, raised a hand. Voice ground through the frozen air like continents shifting. Inevitability awakens. The others echoed, low, resonant, a chant that vibrated in my bones. Too soon, too bright, the inevitable must be contained. They advanced, gliding, not stepping, robes trailing shadow that devoured the grass beneath them. The union echoes too far, the oldest intoned. Realms align, gateways stir, you must be contained before the fracture spreads. Somehow I could still move, my body flickering at the edges, the totem's warmth still humming in my blood. The ancients reached, not with hands, but with that same soul hook pull I'd felt once before, dragging at my essence like hooks in flesh. I cried out, pain slicing through the bond like a blade. Rafe's roar was silent, trapped in frozen lungs. Through the bond, his voice battered my mind. Do it. Shift. Fly, love. Fly now. I hesitated. The witnesses, the clans. If I shifted, if I showed them what I truly was. The pull intensified. Pain exploded, my skin tearing, not with blood, but with light. I let go. Not wolf, not raven. Something vaster. Scales like midnight oil erupted across my shoulders. Wings, membranous, impossible, vast, tore through the air, shattering the fairy lights like glass in my wake. Fire simmered in my throat, hot and ready. I was impossible, and I was magnificent. The ancients recoiled, surprised perhaps for the first time in millennia. I launched, straight up, wings cutting the frozen air. One heartbeat, I met Rafe's eyes from above, molten gold meeting storm gray, the bond flaring one last desperate I love you. Then I banked hard and vanished over the ridge. Gone. The ancients turned their voids toward the sky. She flees. The oldest raised both hands. Time bends. We follow. They dissolved, fraying into shadow, gone as suddenly as they'd come.
Chapter 5. The Howl. The valley had never felt more alive. Every breath of wind through the white pine carrying the scent of wildflowers and cedar smoke. Every fairy light glowing amber like captured stars. Every witness's heartbeat sinking in that golden metaphysical hum. Our vows hung in the air, etched not just into memory but into the fabric of realms beyond. Fated mates recognized for this life and the next. Then the world had stopped, and now it screamed back into motion. Rayna's hand had been warm in mine 1 second, gone the next. The woven cord and wolf pelt strip that had bound our wrists lay scattered on the grass, smoking slightly at the edges where her transformation had burned through the fibers. I stood at the altar, alone, no bride, my wrist still marked by the pressure of her fingers. But the bond held. Faint, distant, furious. She was moving fast, high, already miles away, flying. Something impossible. "Where's Rayna?" Sen cried, whirling, watching black ash fall like snow around that white pine. Her silk dress was smudged with soot, her golden eyes wide with panic. "Rafe, where is she?" Cass's face paled, his hands shaking as he reached for the ceremonial bowl, now cracked down the middle from the sonic boom of her departure. What just happened? Was that her? Lars and Finn shifted instantly. Wolves snarling, fur bursting through skin in ripples of agony and rage. They circled the spot where she'd stood, noses to the scorched earth, hackles raised, scenting the air and finding only ozone and smoke and something else. Something ancient and reptilian that made their wolves whine with confusion. Nikita was at my side in an instant, her phone already out, eyes scanning the ridgeline. "I'm tracking her satellite signal. If she's still carrying the phone..." "She's not," I growled, my voice half wolf already, my hands shaking with the need to shift, to run, to hunt. "She's carrying nothing. I didn't have a word for what she was. Scales, fire, wings larger than physics allowed. "She's gone north, toward the old territories, toward the mountains where the conclave's reach thins." Fandor stepped forward, his tail lashing, his dignified composure cracking to show the warrior beneath. "The ancients can bend time. They'll catch her if she stops." "She won't stop," I said. I could feel her through the bond, mind clear, singular purpose burning. "Run, hide, understand. And neither will I." I stripped off the charcoal shirt, kicked off my boots, letting the shift fill my voice with gravel and growl. "Lars, Fandor, rally the witnesses." "And you?" Nikita asked quietly, stepping close. Her eyes searched my face, Beta assessing Alpha, friend assessing friend. "You're going after her alone?" I shifted, not fully, just enough that my voice came out half growl, my hands sprouting claws that shredded the air. "I'm going to find my wife, and when I do, I'm going to teach the Conclave what happens when they freeze time on a man's wedding day." I ran. The bond pulsed. Faint, but there. North. Toward the old territories. Toward the mountains where the Conclave's magic thinned. "Hold on, love. I'm coming." The clans mobilized behind me. 50 witnesses becoming 50 warriors, moving with the precision of packs and prides that had survived centuries of persecution. They would defend the valley. They would defend each other. And I would bring her home. End of Chapter 5. Chapter 6. Wings of the Unknown. Rayna. The wind at this altitude tastes.
Chapter 6. Wings of the Unknown. Rayna. The wind at this altitude tasted like ice and lightning. My wings, vast, membranous, and gloriously wrong, caught a thermal that should not exist, lifting me higher. Below, the valley was a toy, the white pine a distant toothpick, the witnesses tiny figures locked in confusion and smoke. Rafe was a heartbeat in my chest, faint but furious, determination burning like a beacon across the bond. I didn't know what I was, only that I was free. For now. One moment, hooks in my soul. The next, fire. The shift had torn through me not as agony, but as awakening. Every scale hummed with energy, every wing beat pulled power from the air itself. Wind, storm, fire, earth. I felt connected. Not just to Rafe's bond, faint now, distant but unbroken, but to everything. The river's song from the totem echoed in my veins, old harmony pulsing like a second heart. The children crowned on that carving, united, watching, felt like kin, their forms a mirror to my own multiplicity. I existed now as more than Rayna, the mediator who hid her truths. I existed as the culmination of forgotten bloodlines, a living testament to what had been lost. The dragon wasn't just a form, it was a revelation. Who was I, if not the sum of all these hidden parts? Cellular memory flooded me. Not learned, but inherited. I knew this shape, not from books, from marrow, from a genocide written out of textbooks but burned into blood. I remembered stories my grandfather told me, stories from the old people, the ones who walked before the clans divided. He spoke of the first shifters, beings who carried all forms within one skin. He called them the Sky People, the ones who flew between the worlds, their scales shimmering like northern lights, their breath fire that warmed the long winter nights. They were not gods. They were kin. But the stories always ended the same way. The Sky People were hunted. Their forms were feared. The conclave came later and finished what old fears had started. They wrote the histories. They burned the old songs. They made sure no one remembered that the clans had once been one people. I felt it now. In every wing beat. In every scale. I was proof they failed. The genocide had not been complete. Blood survived. Forms survived. And I would not let them be erased again. If dragons existed, hidden, erased, what other forms slumbered in the bloodlines? The conclave guarded anomalies, but this wasn't anomaly. It was Genesis. A form so enlightened, so vast, it rewrote everything. Flying as this, whatever I was, felt like awakening. Mind clear, body invincible, every sense sharpened to godlike precision. I could hear heartbeats in the trees miles below, smell rain gathering across 3 counties, feel the Earth's magnetic pulse through the air currents. But it terrified me too. This form wasn't in the texts. If the conclave knew, if they'd always known, what else had they erased? I circled once more, high, higher, scanning for pursuit. Nothing yet, but they'd come. Time benders, realm walkers. They'd freeze the world again if they had to. Rafe. His face at the altar, frozen, helpless, twisted my new heart. He'd be rallying them now? Witnesses, clans. They'd fight for me, die for me if I let them. But I couldn't let them, not until I understood what I was. What was lost? Why? The sky stretched endless, blue vault, clouds like distant shores. I flew on. Toward the northern mountains where the conclave's reach thinned, where the old stories said the first shifters had hidden their archives. Toward answers. Toward whatever waited beyond the horizon. The conclave had started this. They'd hunted my people, erased our histories, buried our forms. But they failed. I existed. Dragon. Sky person. Inevitability. And I vowed, right there in the high cold air with fire in my throat and wind under my wings, I would expose them. I would find the hidden history. I would bring it back. Not for revenge. For truth. For the children on the totem who waited to be crowned again. For Rafe, who I could feel bleeding for me across the bond, determined and fierce, already running to catch up. I would not hide anymore. I would not be small. I would be the fire they feared, and I would burn their stories to ash. End of chapter 6.
7. The Scorched and the Secret. Rafe's POV. The oak was scorched. Not burned. Scorched, as if lightning had been born from its heartwood and clawed its way into the world through bark and sap. The white pine stood untouched 20 yards away, sentinel and witness. But our oak, Rayna's oak, was blackened glass, roots drinking ash, the air above it shimmering with heat that had no business existing in autumn. I shifted from wolf to human so fast my knees cracked against the earth, bones grinding, fur retracting with a burn that felt like penance. 11 days. 11 days since time had snapped back at the altar, since the valley had thawed to find me alone with 50 witnesses and the echo of wings thundering in the bond. 11 days of running until my paws bled, of howling until my throat was raw. 11 days. She lay curled at the roots like a seed pod exhausted by blooming. Naked. Human again, but changed. I approached slowly, feet crunching on crystallized grass, and the scent hit me. Ozone and smoke and something ancient, layered over the wild honey smell that was uniquely Rayna. It was wrong. Alien. The residue of a form that outranked everything I knew about power, about law, about the natural order of pack and alpha. My wolf lunged against my ribs, not with fear, but with a hunger that made my throat tight. It wanted to cover her, to drown that terrifying mythic scent in my own, pine and sweat and possessive male, until there was no doubt who she belonged to, even if she'd become something that could swallow me whole. I knelt, trembling. Her skin glowed with fever, traced with red welts like scales pressed too hard against flesh from the inside. Impressions of the beast she'd been. Dragon. The word tasted like prophecy and punishment. Through the bond I felt her exhaustion, but underneath it hummed power so vast it made my teeth ache. She outranks me. The realization landed like a stone in my gut, heavy and undeniable. Not just as my mate, not just as the heart of all clans. She was evolution, chaos and transformation and ancient fire. And I was merely wolf, prey if she chose, predator if she willed it. And God help me, the thought made me hard. I shifted, uncomfortable, furious with my own biology. My cock throbbed against my thigh, my wolf panting with the need to submit even as the man needed to protect. It was perverse, terrifying, exciting. I wanted to bare my throat to her power even as I wanted to chain her to my side and never let go. Rayna, I rasped, voice thick with the arousal I couldn't control. I scooped her up. She weighed nothing, bones light as bird wings, skin fever hot against my palms. Her head lolled against my shoulder and I couldn't stop myself. I turned my face into her neck, inhaling deep, rubbing my stubbled jaw against the column of her throat in a move that was half comfort, half claiming. My scent glands burned, demanding I mark her, that I drench her in my smell so every predator in 100 miles would know she was taken, claimed, his. The dragon smell rose up, smoky and electric, and my wolf whined, submissive, terrified, desperate. I've got you, I growled against her skin, the vibration intentional, possessive. I've got you, mate. The bond surged, open, raw, bleeding between us. As I ran, shifting mid-stride to carry her faster, I didn't just feel her exhaustion. I plunged into it. The mind meld. It started as flickers, colors too bright, wind tearing at membranes I didn't have. Then I was there inside her memory, inside the dragon. Wings vast and black, storm-colored. The sky not above but around, the gray between spaces where conclave hunters lurked like spiders. Terror, yes, but also exhilaration. The freedom of a form that knew no chains, no alpha, no pack law. She'd soared until the fuel ran out, until the fire consumed itself and she fell, burning back to earth. I felt the impact as if it were my own bones breaking. Rafe. Her voice in my head, not weak, but resonant, shaking the foundations of my skull. We were dropping into a dreamscape, the bond dragging us both under even as my paws pounded the forest floor. I landed on 4 legs in a place that wasn't real. Gray mist, the white pine, but enormous, its roots drinking from a river of stars. She stood before me, not human, not dragon, but both and neither. Scales gleaming at her wrists, eyes golden and slit-pupiled, wings folded tight against her back. She was magnificent, terrifying. My wolf crouched low, belly to the ground, whining with the instinct to submit to this apex predator. I shifted to human, naked in the dream, and she tilted her head, watching me with the curiosity of something that could crush me without thought. "You came," she said, and her voice was thunder. "I'll always come," I said, and took a step closer. "Even into this. Even into you." She moved, fast, impossible, and suddenly her hands were on my chest, claws pricking skin. Heat radiated from her, and I was achingly hard again, aroused by the danger, by the power, by the absolute certainty that she was evolution itself. I am not meant to match her, I realized with perfect, devastating clarity. I am meant to be the foundation, the bedrock, the wall she leaned against while she grew into this terrifying, magnificent thing, the sacrifice that bought her time to evolve. I would give my life to ensure she rose. I grabbed her wrists, anchoring her, and growled, not in challenge, but in vow. "I am yours. I follow you into the belly of the beast. I am the foundation, and I do not crack." The dream shattered. I burst back into the compound, shifting so fast my skin split, catching her before she hit the ground. Blood streamed from my nose. I'd forced the transition too hard. Healers swarmed, panther and wolf both, but I couldn't let her go. A panther healer reached for her bare arm, and my wolf saw another male touching her fevered skin. I snapped my teeth inches from his hand, my canines lengthening, a territorial snarl ripping from my chest that made the room go silent. The musk of my aggression, pure alpha dominance, filled the cabin, thick enough to choke on. "Mine," I growled, the word barely human. "Rafe," Nikita's voice sharp, grounding. "He's trying to help her burns." I blinked, shaking, forcing the shift back. But my hands trembled as I laid Rayna on the bed, and I positioned myself between her and the healers, blocking their view with my body. Mine to protect. Mine to scent. Mine. The healers worked around me, but I watched their hands like a predator. When they finished, I drove them out with a look. Then I began to work. I stripped naked, fur and sweat and skin, letting my scent glands open fully. I gathered every fur, every blanket, and built a nest on the floor. Low, enclosed, safe, a den. Rayna stirred as I lifted her down. Her eyes opened, hollow, exhausted, but focused on me. "Rafe?" "Here." I lowered her into the furs, then climbed in after her, draping my body over hers, chest to chest, thighs to thighs, my weight pressing her down. I buried my face in her neck and growled, continuous, rumbling, vibrating against her pulse point. I rubbed my throat against her shoulder, her jaw, her temples, marking every inch of her with my scent until she smelled like us. Through the bond, I felt her exhaustion ease, felt her cling to my presence as the only fixed point in her spinning world. "I'm your foundation," I whispered against her skin, lips tracing the fading burn marks. "I'm the bedrock you grow from. I will die so you can rise, Rayna. Do you understand? I don't need to match your power. I just need to hold you while you become it." She trembled, tears tracking into her hair. "What if I break?" "You won't." I gripped her chin, forcing her to meet my eyes. My gold to her human brown, though I saw the dragon watching me back now, always there, golden and ancient in the depths. "And if you do, I'll follow the pieces into hell and bring them back. Into the belly of the beast, mate. That's my vow." I kissed her then. Not gently. A claim, a brand, a promise that transcended the physical and went soul deep. I poured the vow into the bond. I submit to your evolution. I anchor your flight. I am the price you pay to become. When the raven came at midnight, I was ready. I burned the scroll, she is the fracture, but the poison lingered. Rayna woke screaming at dawn, seeing Grandpa where there was only shadow, and I held her through it, my heart breaking as she trembled, but my resolve hardening into diamond. I was not just her alpha anymore. I was her foundation, and foundations do not crack. End of Chapter 7. Chapter 8. Voices turned against her. Rafe's POV. The doubt in the council hall smelled like rancid meat. I stood at the head of the table, Rayna's hand clamped in mine, and felt the poison the conclave had seeded taking root. Elder Marin's words, "What else does she hide?" hung in the air like smoke. My wolf wanted to rip his throat out, wanted to slam him against the stone wall and growl until he bared his throat in submission. But I was evolving. I was learning that alpha dominance wasn't always teeth and claws. Sometimes it was stone, unmovable, unshakable. I have bled for this pack, I said, my voice low, controlled, but carrying the weight of my wolf's rage. I have killed for it, but if you think I will let you question my mate, my true mate, because you're afraid of her power, then you mistake my silence for weakness. Marin opened his mouth. I leaned forward, and I let the full force of my dominance roll out. Not a attack, but a pressure. The room went silent. Wolves lowered their eyes. Even the bear elders shifted, uncomfortable. She is not your fracture, I said, each word a stone dropped into water. She is your evolution, and I am the foundation that holds her. Question her again, and you question my bond. And I don't forgive treason against my bond. He bared his throat. Subtle, quick, but clear. I didn't wait for dismissal. I pulled Rayna from the hall, her hand trembling in mine, and the moment the door closed, I pressed her against the corridor wall. She was pale, her eyes darting to shadows that weren't there. The conclave's whispers were already inside her. I could feel it through the bond. A corrosion. A rot. "They're winning," she whispered. No. I cupped her face, forcing her to see only me. "They're trying, but they can't have you. Not your mind, not your body, not your soul. You're mine, Rayna. True mate, claimed and marked and kept." I kissed her, not gently, a branding, a reminder. When I pulled back, her lips were swollen and I could smell my scent all over her, covering the ozone sphere. "Come," I growled, tugging her toward the cabin. "I'm taking you to ground." In the cabin, I locked the door and stripped. Not for sex, though my body ached for it, hard with need, but because she needed my scent. She needed to be buried in it, surrounded by the chemical truth of my biology. I built the nest again, lower this time, more enclosed. A den. A fortress of fur and blankets. I laid her in the center and covered her, then climbed in and pressed my full weight over her, letting my naked skin touch every inch of hers that I could reach. I growled, low and continuous, the vibration a lullaby and a ward. But the conclave was already inside. I felt it first as a spike of pain through the bond, a psychic blow that manifested as physical agony in my chest. I gasped, clutching my sternum, and looked down to see bruises blooming purple and black across my skin where my heart was. Rayna's eyes were wide, unseeing, staring at the corner. "No," she whimpered. "Grandpa, I didn't mean to disappoint you." Hallucination. I gritted my teeth against the sympathetic pain, her heartache becoming my bruises, and I held her tighter. "Not real love. I'm real. Feel me, feel my weight." She thrashed, clawing at my arms. "You're not real. You left me. You're dead." The conclave was showing her my death. I felt it through the bond, the specific, crushing grief of seeing me gone. I had to anchor her. had to drown the visions in sensory truth. I pressed my forehead to hers and poured through the bond. Not words, sensations, memories made physical. The first time we'd made love in this cabin, her nails raking my back, the heat of her sheath around me, the taste of her throat when I bit down, the time in the snow when I'd warmed her with my body, skin to skin, heartbeat to heartbeat. The feeling of her submission when she'd accepted my claim, the perfect trust when she'd bared her throat to my teeth. I flooded her mind with us, with physical reality. She gasped, arching beneath me, her body responding to the phantom touches even as her mind fought the visions. Rafe. Yes, I growled against her ear. That's real. This is real. But then she froze, her face twisted into horror. No, she sobbed, pushing at my chest with sudden, violent strength. You said I was too dangerous. You said you were leaving. You broke the bond. False rejection. The Conclave's cruelest lie. She didn't see me anymore. She saw the vision, and she was terrified. She struck me. Hard. Her palm cracked across my jaw, then her knee came up, catching my ribs. I grunted, but I didn't strike back. I didn't restrain her with force. I grabbed her wrists and held them, not to hurt, but to anchor. Rayna, I said, my voice breaking. I'm here. I'm not leaving. I will never break the bond. I'd die first. You're lying, she screamed, tears streaming. You walked away. You hate me. The time fracture hit as I reached for her, my hand outstretched, my heart breaking. The world tilted. I saw her falling backward through gray mist, saw her eyes go white, saw the void opening to swallow her. Rayna! I lunged, and the cabin dissolved around us. End of Chapter 8. Chapter 9. The world tilts sideways. Rafe's POV. I was inside her when the world broke. Not fully, just the tip, enough to make her feel full, enough to make the bond sing. I'd been moving slowly, carefully, trying to ground her in physical sensation. Her legs were wrapped around my hips, her nails in my shoulders, and for one breath, one heartbeat, I thought we were winning. Then her spine arched like a bowstring drawn too tight. Her eyes rolled back to white. And she screamed, not in pleasure, but in terror. Rayna? I froze, still inside her, panic spiking. Rayna, come back. Her hand moved. Not a caress, a strike. Her nails, sharpening to something between human and claw, raked across my chest, drawing 4 deep furrows that welled blood immediately. The pain was shocking, white hot. I jerked back, but she followed, snarling, her face twisted into a mask of terror and rage. She sees the enemy, I realized. She sees the Conclave, and she thinks I'm them. Rayna, it's me! I caught her wrists, but she was stronger than she should be, the dragon lending her power. She bucked, threw me off balance, and her knee came up, hard, catching my cracked ribs with force that drove the air from my lungs. I grunted, rolling, trying to protect her from hurting herself as much as protect myself. She came at me again, screaming, Get away from me, you're dead, you left me, you're not real. The Conclave was showing her my death, 1,000 deaths. In her mind, I was the enemy, the betrayer, the void wearing my face. She aimed for my throat, lethal, precise, her claws extended to kill. I could stop her. I was Alpha. I could pin her, dominate her, force her submission with sheer strength. My wolf demanded it. Demanded I assert control, that I mount her and bite her and claim her until she knew who was master. But that was the old way. The way of dominance for dominance's sake. I looked up at her, my mate, my heart, lost in terror, and I made my choice. I released her wrists. I dropped my hands to the furs, palms up, exposing my chest and throat completely. I tilted my head back, baring my jugular to her teeth, and I submitted. Kill me, I said, my voice steady despite the blood dripping from my chest. Or keep me. But I'm not fighting you. I'm not your enemy. I'm your foundation. Her claws pressed against my throat, breaking skin. A single thrust and she'd sever my artery. "I don't crack," I whispered, looking into her wild, unseeing eyes. "I'm real. I'm here. I submit to you, Rayna. Not because you're stronger, because you're mine, and I'm yours, even in this, even here." The claws trembled. And then, pain. Not from her, through the bond. A cascade of visions hitting me like a tsunami, her visions. The conclave forcing her to watch me die. I saw myself old and bitter, staring at her grave. I saw my throat torn out by mountain lions. I saw me walking away from her in the snow, abandoning her to die, my shoulders slumped, my voice saying, "I can't save you. You're too broken." 1,000 timelines, 1,000 deaths, all designed to prove that loving her destroyed me. I felt each death as real as the claws at my throat. Felt the cold, the blood, the grief. But I didn't move. I stayed bared beneath her, offering my throat, accepting every death she saw as truth. Because the only real death would be failing her now. "I choose this timeline," I gasped, blood running down my neck. "I choose you. Every death, every pain, every fracture. I choose to be your foundation." The bond snapped. It was audible, a click in my soul, a lock turning. The true mating completion. Not the ceremony, not the claim. This, the moment I submitted my life to her evolution. The cabin dissolved. The gray rushed in. But this time, I went with her. I landed in the between space, naked and bleeding. But I was there. I'd been pulled into her vision. Or she'd pulled me. Or the bond had torn down the wall between minds. Rayna stood before me, but she was different. Wings vast and black, storm-colored, erupting from her shoulders. Eyes golden and slit-pupiled. The dragon fully realized. And we were surrounded. Void-eyed conclave avatars rushed us, legion, infinite. Rayna's hand found mine. Her claws were sharp, but her grip was sure. "Together," she said, and her voice was thunder and smoke. "Into the belly," I agreed. My wolf rose up beside her, not separate, but merged. We moved as one creature, the wolf and the dragon, the foundation and the evolution. She struck with fire and claw. I struck with fang and fury, defending her flank, her back, her wings. We tore through the gray like a blade through silk. When the last avatar fell, she turned to me in the vision, her eyes burning with ancient power. She touched my face, clawed, mythic, the heart fully awakened. "You didn't chase me," she said, wonder in her voice. "You stayed, you submitted, you let me hurt you." "You needed to know I was real," I said. "You needed to know I wouldn't dominate you while you were vulnerable. I'm not just your alpha, I'm your mate, your equal, your foundation." "And I," she said, her wings spreading wide, casting shadows that swallowed the gray, "am your evolution." The vision shattered. We woke in the nest, entwined, my blood on her hands, her tears on my chest, the bond singing between us, completed, sealed, unbreakable. She had risen, and I had evolved. End of chapter 9.